Hi everyone, it's Jason from iChoice. It's an interesting time for us credit advisors right now, and I thought it's a really good time to just put a few ideas out there for you. A lot of you probably wonder where you stand with this whole Banking Royal Commission and the way that the different political parties are responding to it. So I wanted to just touch on it very quickly, but I'm going to just talk about a couple of things first. First of all, I just want to talk about the tighter lending conditions that we've all experienced the last 18 months. In general, for any applicant that comes to us, they can borrow about 20% less than what they could a year ago. There's a number of different things. We use higher sensitised interest rates, higher living expenses that we adopt into the equation. Many of the banks are now asking us to actually go through your savings statements and identify every single monthly commitment you have. In the past, we just worked off a HEM index, like a base index, and it seemed to be easier. So yes, everyone can generally borrow about 20% less than what they can a year ago. What this means for many borrowers is that you're actually stuck with the bank that you landed with a year or two ago, whether or not that's the best bank for you right now, whether you've got the best interest rate or the banks have nudged it up on you and you're unable to switch into another bank that's not going to offer you a UBUT interest rate that they reserve for new to bank clients. This is one thing that's disturbing a lot of people, and we're looking to other ways. We're looking at a lot more non-bank lenders who, because they're not under the direct control of APRA, can be a little bit more flexible. The next thing I want to talk about is interest-only loans. They were very rampant a few years ago. Even if you took an interest-only loan for 5 years, but the loan was a 30-year term, the bank still kind of assessed your capacity to service that loan over a full 30 years. We've kind of realised that the whole industry was doing that a little bit wrong. So now a lot of people who are coming off interest-only loans this year will have a very short, the good old days where you just roll over the interest-only term for another 5 years are gone. They're now saying, well, hold on, there's only 18 years of this loan left now. You have to be able to demonstrate that you can service this loan over the remaining 18 years. A lot won't be able to. Not only are they going to be unable to refinance, but they might not actually be able to make the increased repayments, which can be like nearly twice as much. So that's going to be something that's really going to affect us this year. It will affect us for the next 2 or 3 years. What this will happen to the property market, there will some people who will need to liquidate some assets. Other people will be okay. So look, let me just touch right to the Banking Royal Commission. Amongst all these things happening, the Royal Commission looked at banks and the whole financial industry to see if there were things that weren't being done correctly and can be done better. The conclusion of the report, it seems, is that, well, the night the report came out and we had some political commentary from our leaders, is that the value of the banks rose by $20 billion overnight, the biggest in history, a 5% jump in the market cap of the major banks, not the minor banks. I'm not sure if this was the intended consequence. If mortgage brokers are taken out of the equation, people are forced to go directly to one bank and just be advised on one product and one offering and one set of policies, and this is not good for anybody. If they're talking about that us credit advisors have to charge a fee instead of being remunerated by the bank, it just means that you have to charge a fee. And they're talking about the Dutch model where if we have to charge an X fee, your bank has to charge the same fee to keep it an even playing field. All this means is more money for the banks and less money for you. But that's the bottom line, and which is why the value of the banks went up so much. But what I feel really more criminal than a mortgage broker advising on a whole different bunch of products is if you go into one bank, and 4 out of 10 people still do this, and just get the advice of one bank, not even knowing what the bank across the road is doing in terms of policy, rates, structure, and everything else to keep you moving forward safely. So I'm not sure if this has ended well. I'm not talking from a political stance at this point, yet I might be in a couple of weeks. I'm waiting on some responses from both left and right sides of politics to exactly figure out if where we've ended up was intended. Look, that's all I'm going to say about that right now. We've got an interesting year. If the Labor government do come in, we've got negative gearing apparently being taken away. That will make a big difference probably immediately. The market might shock to that news. You've got to remember when this idea was discussed, the property markets were booming. It doesn't make so much now to do something to further damage our declining property market right now. But a lot of the other things, if you have money in an offset account against an investment now, just make sure you don't pay off your loans and you leave your funds in investments, because post the removal of negative gearing, we would switch that offset over to sit against the loan that you can no longer negatively gear. We'll do things smart. This is why we use different banks and different products to make sure that you get ahead tax effectively and you protect your assets while you're doing it. That's all for now. Stay tuned though, there'll be lots more to say in weeks to come. Bye.